حي على الفلاح.
Do not leave on this earth even one single kafir. Destroy them all. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala commanded Nuh alayhi salam to start building the ship, the famous ark of Nuh alayhi salam. As he was constructing it, the people would come by, the disbelievers, they would come by and they would laugh at him, they would mock him, they would make fun of him. What are you doing making a boat in the middle of the dry land? How is it ever going to sail? Nuh alayhi salam said, if you make fun of us, then we will make fun of you just as you make fun of us. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala started the tufan. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent water from the skies and He created a huge storm. There were some pious people, very religious people that were beloved by all of the people. And these were good people. They worshipped Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alone and they were devoted to the ibadah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alone. They were good people. When these people who were so loved to the people, they passed away, of course that caused sadness amongst the people. The shaitan tried to take advantage of their emotional state. He gave them an idea to remember these people. And he said to them, you can remember these people by drawing pictures of them and keeping them with you. And whenever you see those pictures, you will remember those people and it will console you and it will actually encourage you to increase in your ibadah. So they drew pictures of their people, of their pious people who had passed away, and they didn't worship them. They worshipped Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alone, but they just used these pictures as a reminder to those days when those people were amongst them. So that lasted for a generation. When this generation passed away and the next generation came, then the shaitan came to them again. And he said, instead of pictures, let's make it into statues. Then the statues are more closely resembling the actual people, so it will give you a better reminder. When you see these statues, you'll remember those pious people, and you will remember those days, and you will worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with more enthusiasm and with more vigor. They thought that sounded logical, so that was the next step. They made statues commemorating those pious people. And then the shaitan let that go for another generation. Then, in the next generation, when the people had forgotten, and the young people, they just saw their parents having deep respect for these statues, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was forgotten by these people, and instead of worshipping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they went straight to the worship of these statues. So the shaitan didn't encourage them to do shirk from the first step. Rather, he planted the seeds for shirk to grow over a period of time, and it was a long period of time, from pictures to statues to straight out worshipping of these statues as idols. And that was the shaitan's end game, and that is when shirk started amongst humankind. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent Nuh alayhi salam as the first messenger to guide the people out of shirk back to tawheed. Now Nuh alayhi salam, he tried his best to fulfill the responsibility that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala entrusted him with. And he did everything that he could. And he stayed with his people for a period of 950 years. He called his people to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the night and in the day. And he called them openly and publicly and privately, in the hope that these people would understand the call of Tawheed and enter into Islam. He tried to show them that they would get a great reward if they repented to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and asked Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for forgiveness and turned back to the way of Tawheed. He said to them that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will send down rain from the sky, and He will provide you with wealth, and He will provide you with children, and He will provide you with gardens, and He will provide you with rivers. He tried to encourage them to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala by showing them or telling them about the reward that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would give them. He tried scaring them with the punishment of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Surely I fear for you the punishment of a great day. And no one believed with him except for a few people. The people at the time of Nuh alayhi salam, the older people would advise their children. When the time of their death would come, they would tell their children, there is this man, Nuh, don't believe in him. Whatever he says, don't follow him, don't believe in him. They would advise this to their children before they died. And then their children would advise that to their children. And it went on like this. Finally, Nuh alayhi salam made dua against the disbelievers from his people. Do not leave on this earth even one single kafir. Destroy them all. Ya Allah, if you were to leave them, what are they going to do? They will misguide your slaves. They will not give birth except to wrongdoers and disbelievers. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accepted the dua of Nuh alayhi salam. And he told Nuh alayhi salam, whoever has believed with you, they are the believers. And from now on, no one else is going to believe. So don't worry about them. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala commanded Nuh alayhi salam to start building the ship, the famous ark of Nuh alayhi salam. And this ark was built from the instructions of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala himself. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told Nuh alayhi salam through revelation how to build this boat. So it was under the instructions of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that Nuh alayhi salam constructed this ark. As he was constructing it, the people would come by, the disbelievers, they would come by and they would laugh at him, they would mock him, they would make fun of him. What are you doing making a boat in the middle of the dry land? How is it ever going to sail? They would mock him, they would make fun of him. Nuh alayhi salam said to those people that were making fun of him, if you make fun of us, then we will make fun of you, just as you make fun of us. You will come to know who is going to get a punishment that will humiliate him, and an everlasting punishment is going to come. So Nuh alayhi salam continued, and he constructed this ship under the instructions of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now it has been narrated that the ship was constructed with 3 levels. The bottom level was for the animals, the middle level was for the humans, and the upper level was for the birds. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala commanded Nuh alayhi salam to take a pair of every animal. Take a pair, a male and a female, of every animal, so that when the whole earth is destroyed except for the inhabitants of this ship, then they can start again with what remains on this ship. The animals can reproduce. The human beings who Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala saved, they will be the people who are left on this earth. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala started the tufan. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent water from the skies, and He created a huge storm. And He ordered Nuh alayhi salam to board the ship with those people who believed with him, and with the animals, a pair of each animal. Nuh alayhi salam, at the time when the flood started and he was getting the believers onto his ship, he saw his son. One of the sons of Nuh alayhi salam was a kafir. So when he saw his son that was a disbeliever, he said, "Oh, my son, board the ship with us, don't be with the kafirs." And then his son replied to the father, "I will go to this mountain, and that's going to protect me from the water." Nuh alayhi salam said, "There is no protection from the commandment of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala today, except for those whom He shows mercy upon." And who are those who He shows mercy upon? The people on the boat, the people on the ship. And while this conversation was taking place, a wave came in between them, and the son of Nuh alayhi salam was from amongst the people who were drowned. It has been narrated that the ship went around the earth in this flood for a period of 6 months, and then it stopped on the mount of Al-Judi. And when this happened, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had destroyed all of the disbelievers on the face of the earth. There were no more kuffar on the earth. And the only people who remained were Nuh alayhi salam and those people who believed with him. The only people who came into existence after that, anyone who was born after that, came from the family of Nuh alayhi salam. Every single human being on the earth today is from the descendants of Nuh alayhi salam. And then Nuh alayhi salam made a dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala about his son, whom he saw drowned in that flood. Nuh alayhi salam called on to his Lord. He called upon Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, "O my Lord, my son is from my family. And surely your promise is the truth, and you are the most wise of those who have wisdom." He drowned with those who drowned, but he hoped that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would still have mercy upon his son in the hereafter, even though he died upon kufr. And this was due to the love that a father naturally has for his son. How did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reply to Nuh alayhi salam? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, "Ya Nuh, surely he is not from your family. Surely his deeds were not good. Do not ask me about things which you have no knowledge about. I warn you from being among the people who are ignorant." When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala replied like this to Nuh alayhi salam, Nuh alayhi salam immediately repented to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for ever having said such a thing. "O my Lord, I seek refuge in you from ever asking you about something that I have no knowledge about. And if you don't forgive me, and if you don't have mercy upon me, surely I will be from amongst the losers." This is how the prophets reacted when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala corrected what they said.